What if the person who hurt you the most was the one that God wanted you to forgive? Have you ever felt that God just didn't understand how badly you were hurt and betrayed or even wronged? Look, for most of us, forgiveness is a whole lot easier said than done, but forgiveness is the only path to real freedom. So forgiveness isn't simply about releasing the debt or releasing someone from offense. It's all about how it frees you. Hey guys, my name is Matt Dawson, and on this channel we talk about going from lazy faith to living hope. And I want to talk a little bit about this idea of forgiveness because after being a pastor and being in ministry for so many years, this is a continual conversation that I have. People who are struggling to not only forgive, but to how forgiveness works. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of an example today. And then in the middle of it, I'm going to talk a little bit about how that kind of affects us. And then I'm going to walk you towards the end of this really cool story and some prophecy that came true for a young guy named Esau. So this is the story of two brothers named Jacob and Esau. All right. Jacob and Esau were born to Isaac, who was the son of Abraham. But Esau was the oldest. He was basically the firstborn, which means the firstborn gets the birthright. The firstborn gets the blessing in that kind of society, in the patriarchal society that we read about in the Old Testament. And it was a very big deal. And you go through their little bit of their storyline. You know, Jacob tricks Esau to give him his birthright over some soup or some stew because he was so hungry one day. Esau was a hunter. Jacob was a kind of a homebody and the favorite of the mom. Anyway, you get to the point where they think Isaac's on his deathbed. He's not really, but he's blind. He's getting older. And he tells Esau to go make his favorite meal, go hunt, make my favorite meal, and I'm going to give you the blessing. But the mom overhears it, and as Esau leaves to go out, the mom tells Jacob, hey, let's do this. I'm going to make the meal. Jacob's not against it, but he's like, hey, I might get caught, you know? She puts some goat skin on his hands and on his back of his neck to kind of make him he puts Esau's clothes on so he can kind of smell like Esau. Anyway, long story short, Jacob deceives not just Esau, but he deceives his dad to pretend that he's Esau to receive the blessing. Now, no sooner than all that happens, Esau shows back up. He's gone and killed what he needed to kill. He was going to make the favorite food. He goes into the dad and he says, Dad, I'm your son Esau. It's time for the blessing. And the dad starts to shake. Isaac starts to shake because he's so angry at the deception that he's already gone. He's already given the blessing away because he thought it was Esau. Esau is so angry at that moment because he's like, what about me? Where's my blessing? And that's not how it works. Isaac does give Esau kind of a blessing, if you will, or kind of a prophetic statement because he says, you don't get the same blessing. You're going to live away from here. You're going to live away from the richness of the earth that we're giving to Jacob. But I want you to see this verse. This is important. This is in Genesis 27:39. It says, finally, his father Isaac says to Esau, you will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by your sword and you will serve your brother. Now watch this. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. All right, this is Genesis 27:39. When you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. Well, he goes on to talk about the fact that Esau hated Jacob, that he had basically plotted to kill his brother. As soon as dad dies, I'm taking Jacob out. Jacob's mom, of course, who was a part of the whole deception, tells Jacob to go away. Let me just talk a little bit about forgiveness. Again, being in ministry as long as I have, and I have my own personal story, which I'll share with you in a minute. Forgiveness is something really difficult, not just for people to do, but to even understand how we do it. Okay? So let me break this down to two things. It's forgiveness given versus forgiveness received, all right? Forgiveness given is the call that we're all called to in terms of being followers of Christ. We are called to forgive because God has forgiven us, right? That's the call that we're given. We forgive because he's forgiven us. But forgiveness received is the example we get because of Christ. So forgiveness received is restoration. It gives us this beautiful restoration into the kingdom of God. We're now co-heirs with Christ. We're forgiven of our sins. We've accepted his forgiveness. But again, hear that. We don't get the reconciliation until we come to Christ, surrender ourselves, and receive his grace and mercy. For most of us, right, people are not going to even know that they offended us. People are not going to sometimes care that they betrayed or offended. Why? Because they will easily justify the reason they had to do it. They had no choice. This is the way it was. Back then I was addicted. I had other issues. I understand that it hurts your feelings, whatever. People will just justify it, try to get it out of their mind. They don't want to own the weight, right? And the guilt that comes from having wronged someone. So we'll justify it. We'll figure it out. So the reason I say forgiveness given, most people think that forgiveness is forgiveness received, meaning that, well, if I forgive them, I release them of the debt, so to speak. Now I have to fully trust them. Now there's some expectation of reconciliation because I have forgiven them. No, reconciliation comes when it's received. Reconciliation comes when there's both people kind of working in agreement with that this was wrong. But forgiveness given is what we're called to. Forgiveness given is the fact that we're called to release the debt no matter what. Meaning that doesn't matter whether somebody recognizes the offense. This could take years. So before I finish the Jacob and Esau story, I'll just share a personal example. I had a situation in ministry. I felt extraordinarily betrayed by a pastor, and it was deeply hurtful. It hurt my family, changed my circumstances drastically. It was, in terms of the word that people use, it is called church hurt or something along those lines. They've used that word before, but by the betrayal or hurt by church leadership, so to speak. I was stuck there for several years. When I thought of this person, all I could think of was anger, bitterness, how much I wanted them to suffer. But it was after maybe 5 years. I think that's a good guess. After about 5 years, I had been working through the process of, I know I need to forgive. I have to release it. I have to let it go. And this is not something, hear me say, it's not something that you just do and it's done. It's something you continually do. When that person came to mind or memories of that circumstance came to mind, you're like, ugh, and I could either get stuck in my bitterness or I could choose to forgive, even in that moment. About 5 or 6 years later, I had found out that something health-wise had happened to that pastor. And my first thought was I genuinely felt bad. Felt bad for him, felt bad for his family. And I ended up telling my wife later, I was like, you know what? I think that forgiveness finally has happened. I continually had to do it, but that was a sign to me that forgiveness had actually taken place. It doesn't mean that I forget any of those things, but the forgiveness was given. I will tell you this, if you're stuck in bitterness, this is your call to step into freedom and to begin the process to begin to extend forgiveness. Something you might have to choose every single day for years. But this is what this channel is about. Being set free to stay free. I want you to begin that journey of forgiveness. We don't get to hear Esau's journey in the story, but I do want to take you to something that was really cool. So Jacob later in his life wants to reconcile with his brother. Okay, so he sends a bunch of gifts to him. They find out where he is. He sends a bunch of gifts to him. Jacob's servants find out that Esau has like 400 men with him, like an army. Okay, and Jacob still extends an invitation to see his brother. Now, a bunch of other weird stuff happens. I'm not going to bore you, but he basically puts his servants up in the very front, and then some of his women and children, he stays in the back, because when Esau shows up with 400 people, Jacob doesn't know how it's going to go. I mean, this is a guy who's wanted to kill him, who said, I'm going to kill you. When our father's dead, you're going to die. And again, at this point, it's been 20 years. Isaac hasn't died yet. So again, even though he thought he was sort of at the end, he really wasn't. But I will tell you this. After, of course, Esau makes his way to Jacob, and nobody else dies in the moment, Jacob bows 7 times. Okay? This is the closest we get to Jacob recognizing that he has done his brother wrong, and he's sorry, and he, at that moment, sort of, makes it like, well, even if it's fear, he still does it. He bows 7 times to his brother. And what he expected was a sword. But what he got fully embraced in a hug. He was, in that moment, fully embraced. Because Esau, somewhere in the course of 20 years, his father called it out in that prophecy. You're going to break free of this bitterness towards your brother. And when you do, you, Esau, are going to be free. And so sometime in that 20-year period of time, Esau had worked through the process of forgiveness. And by the time that Jacob reaches out and there might be reconciliation, Esau gets to come with a hug. And he's so excited and happy to see his brother, because they're brothers, because they're family. Again, it's 20 years later. He expected a sword, but he got the embrace. Hear this. Forgiveness wasn't earned by Jacob. I mean, he tried to send a bunch of gifts. He tried. Forgiveness wasn't really earned in this moment, right? Forgiveness was just given. Even before Jacob bowed, even before Jacob sent the invitation, even before these things happened, forgiveness was given. It freed Esau of his bitterness. Probably, obviously he doesn't forget what happened, but it freed him from those things so that when he saw his brother, he could embrace him and experience forgiveness with him. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I told you my story. Who is it you need to forgive? Who is occupying space in your heart with bitterness that you need to release, right? Maybe write their name down. Someone told me this the other day. Maybe you just need to begin to pray for them. It's possible to kind of hold that bitterness and hate for someone when you are actually praying for them, when you're actually saying their name and praying for them, to begin to experience that. If you're stuck in bitterness, guys, I'm just telling you, this is your week. This is what this channel is all about. So that you can go from you can not only be set free in Christ, but you can stay free and not be bound up, right? Not be all bound up in chains that we've placed on ourselves. And this is what forgiveness is all about. This is the power of forgiveness in our faith. To be able to release the debt, to be able to say, you don't deserve it, you didn't earn it, but because of Christ, you are forgiven. If you've been stuck in bitterness, this is your week to step out of that and into freedom. That's what we hope this channel is all about. Continue to help us move from just that lazy faith in the areas we've been stuck to experiencing living